Good morning and welcome back. It is now Tuesday the 6th. We have a nice little light rain coming down here. The weather did turn dramatically over the weekend with about 3/8 of an inch of rain falling in the Nobleford area. I have not found any signs of hail damage yet. I'm currently up by Carmangay, and while there is ample evidence of some, pretty steady downpours causing some of the cereals to lodge, I'm not really seeing any signs of hail or anything like that. So let's take a look and see what we're looking at this week. There is still some relatively late seeded green canola that it's not really maturing yet. You can see this canola, we still have lots of leaf material, stuff like that in here. So this rain is actually, comes at a decent time for a canola like this. We are still filling a lot of those upper pods. You can see that they kind of have a skeletonized, thin appearance. Hopefully this rain will help these pods fill out and flesh out a little bit better. Potentially could increase our yield. It wouldn't increase seed count or anything at this time, but could potentially help fill those pods a little bit better. There is still the odd little flower here and there, but for the most part, pod set is basically completely done. A lot of these fields this week, I'm not even going to be sweeping for insects anymore. A lot of them are starting to show early signs of ripening. So let's go take a look at some more. This wheat field is in the same stage as many others. It is getting fairly close to harvestable. A lot of these heads were in, good hard dough stage in these now, really starting to ripen, but you can see there is still quite a few heads with green mixed in. So we are still a little ways away from harvest here, but you get a week of nice weather and a lot of these fields are going to start to disappear real fast. Well, some of the pea fields have started to disappear already. Good part of this field has been harvested. Of course, that is now on delay with the wet weather. But you can see we do have quite a few acres that did get done here already. And I'm sure more is going to get done this week when it dries out. A lot of the barley is very close to being harvestable. There is still a few green heads here and there that do have some doughy kernels in them, but for the most part, most of it is in that ripening stage. We just need to let it dry down and finish maturing, which won't be all that long once the sun comes out again and things warm up. Well, some of these canola fields are starting to see the first signs of ripening, but even that is a little bit premature. When you start opening these pods here, you can see our seeds are still not really turning all that great. We're kind of just a light mustardy brown color in a lot of these guys, even though the pods are ripe. Once we go up a little bit further, you can see even though the pods are brown, we have green seeds inside. So looks like it's mostly just premature ripening due to moisture issues and extreme heat. So hopefully these do change color and the greens are not locked in, but we'll know more in another week or two. This is still a ways away from harvest, even though it does look like it's rapidly maturing. Here's a good example of what I'm seeing for sawfly damage. Here's 5 stems. I just picked these, were all side by side in the field, and 4 of those 5 stems had sawfly damage. So there's definitely a pretty high proportion of sawfly in this field, and I think we should probably be taking this one down. And it doesn't hurt that you can see there's some kochia patches in this field as well. And a lot of these kochia patches we're seeing develop in fields quite a bit right now because the crop was so stressed for the last month or so that we had no rain. This crop lost most of its leaves weeks ago, and that allowed light into the lower canopy, which allowed some of that kochia to become competitive with the crop again. If we'd had better moisture conditions during the summer and we had a healthier, taller, thicker crop, then the kochia would still be suppressed underneath of it, but now it's not. Well, the safflower field is in full flower this week, but it's not looking all that great. The combined last few weeks of drought stress have really gotten to it, and you can see there's pretty much no leaf material left except for a little bit of green material right around the buds themselves. So this recent moisture that we've gotten over the weekend should definitely help to fill these heads out, but I'm not sure how well it's going to work with absolutely no leaf material left to feed those heads. This lentil field down by McGrath is coming along pretty well. We're getting close to desiccation timing, but we're not quite there yet. You can see we still have quite a bit of really grass green area in this field, well over probably 10%, but it'll come along pretty quick, I think, and once we get a few more days of sunlight. And next week, we'll probably come in here with some Regulon ion. Well, this dryland canola field is starting to show some ripening when you start checking the main stems now. You can see bottom pods. We do have a little bit of insect damage here, but we are starting to see some color change, going right up to the middle. We got some decent color change going on there. A little farther up, you can still see we got some greens in there, and we are still pretty green but solid at the top. So if the average of the field is at about this stage, then we're getting, somewhat close to swath timing, but we would want to hang on a little bit longer for desiccation timing, which is what this field is going to be. So we'll take another look at it next week. Well, I think all of the rainy weather has passed us by now. Some fields like this one got partially harvested before the moisture came in. So you can see we still have some combines parked down there. These peas are a bit tough at the moment. They're maturity-wise, they're fine. Just, heavy dew overnight. Everything here is pretty tough, especially from that rain the last couple days. So give it a couple hours of sunlight and, some of these fields we might be back into later on today. Here we have another cornfield getting very close to tasseling. You can feel the tassel is actually, the top of the tassel is right about here. So there is still a leaf or two that has to emerge before the tassel comes out, but we're getting very close. We're going to see a lot of tasseling happening in the next week. Well, the weather over this last week definitely seems like it has knocked down some of the aphids and other insect numbers in some of these crops like this wheat. You can see here we do have an army worm on a head. And there is still a couple of aphids here. You can see on this head these little orange aphids, but overall the numbers are drastically reduced from what they were last week, so that's nice to see. Here we have a relatively young field of barley. This is going to be going for silage here in a while, and not, as you can see, anywhere close to that stage yet, but you can see this patch I'm standing in right here is a little bit of a low area. It's also had some heavy traffic on it in the construction process, so there is some compaction issues here, but really you can see we are having quite a problem with seedling disease. You can see these roots are all very heavily diseased. They're very brown, caramelized. We're certainly not off to a good start here. So, when you're seeding a late crop like this, even though, it is going to be up and out of the ground right away, that does not mean that it is necessarily a good idea to skip a fungicide seed treatment. Skipping out on that seed treatment has lost a substantial part of yield in this field. Well, some of that wild wind and weather on the weekend definitely caused some lodging and some of the more mature barley. You can see this field, we're basically, hard dough to ripening. We're getting pretty solid in here. We're not far away from harvest at all in here, but as you can see, it is pretty thick and matted and really close to the ground. So this field is going to be a real challenge to harvest. This did even get a growth regulator, but it was such a big heavy crop, it still went down anyways. Well, here we have a very nice looking crop of silage oats. So as you can see, we have a really good stand in here and we're just starting to hit stem elongation, but you can also see we have a really good crop of pigweeds in here. So these are all red root pigweed. You can see that distinctive red root on this guy here. Some of these, the taller ones now, are hitting 10 inches, but most of them are still only 4 or 5 inches. So we are going to come in here in the next couple days. We're going to hit this with a shot of Enforcer M from New Farm. Enforcer M has the benefit of being a very safe product on oats. It doesn't kind of knock them back and beat them up like a 2,4-D based phenoxy product would. So should see a big reduction in weeds in the next week or so in this field. This canola field is now finished flowering and is well into pod development. There is still the odd flower here and there. Right now, Lygus count is starting to come up in it. You can see we do have some larger nymphs in here that are just starting to hit those threshold values, or counting towards threshold, I should say. However, we're not there yet. We're about, maybe half of threshold, if that. So I'll have to keep an eye on this field because that could change in the next week or so. Well, it's that time of the year again. I am starting to find a little bit of aster yellows in a few fields. You can see these plants have a pretty minor case of it. It's only just affected the very terminal end of these stems. Overall, very little damage. In some years, this can be a lot worse than others, but this year, very minor. Today I'm trying to do some assessments on my canola plots now that they have finished flowering and everything is looking good. You still cannot really see any lines in the field or any differences between any of these treatments. However, I started the day by pulling up a bunch of plants and counting pods off of each plant and found some interesting results, but ultimately I decided the results didn't mean a whole lot because the difference between viable pods that have, 2 or 3 seeds versus 30 seeds can be pretty dramatic. So instead what I've done is I've pulled up 5 random plants out of each plot and I have completely stripped them of pods and put all the pods in a bag. So now I'm going to go weigh these bags and see if there's any difference between the plots as far as the mass of pods go. I can definitely tell volume-wise there is quite a difference between, say, the control bag and the everything 6 times bag is significantly heavier, but yeah, we'll go take a look. As far as the winner of number of pods on a main stem goes, I got to give it to Agrarius with over 50 pods on some of the main stems and over 40 on some of the side branches. Some of the other plants, are averaging in the 30s to 40s. Well, I got all my baggies of pods weighed and some pretty interesting results so far. Agrarius is the winner, as far as I can tell, with both the highest number of pods per stem, as well as the highest weight in grams of pods off of an average of 5 plants. But a lot of the other products were pretty close behind it, and all the products tested actually did beat control, and the overall winner was the Everything All at Once treatment, which was all products combined applied every week. Of course, no big surprise there. Well, we still got some threatening looking clouds out there now and again, but after a couple days of sunshine, now the crops are looking much better. A lot of this stuff like this barley right here is getting pretty close to being harvestable. I think we'll be in here in the combine within a week for sure. Things are really rapidly drying down. The combines will be rolling here right away. Well, aside from the rising number of Lygus in some canola fields, not a whole lot going on this week, other than, getting closer and closer to harvest and some fields starting to come off. So that'll be it for this week. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.